In a new age of watchmen, a team of individuals pooling their talents and abilities come together to bring analysis, reaction, and comedy to the fold. This is their chronicle. This is Accounting Arc.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Accounting Arc. And today I am meeting with Rob Brown, who joins us all the way, way across the pond, because today I am actually home in Hawaii. And so actually it's not just across the pond, it's across the entire continent, literally on the other side of the world, because we just figured out that it was 7:30 p.m. his side and it's 6:30 a.m. on my side. So we're literally across the world on time zones. Welcome, Rob. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of what you do?
Opposite sides of the world indeed, Donny, but it just shows you the international world that we live in, that we can have a conversation like this and even see ourselves as we have the conversation. And I do wonder what the pandemic would have been like if it would have happened in 1980 or
Ooh,
1960 and how we would have
that
coped
is
with
scary to
that.
think about.
Yeah. So lovely to be on your show, Donny, and wonderful what you're doing in shining a light on a career in accounting. And there are many wonderful players in this game that are actually not accountants. I'm a former high school math teacher. So I did my degree here in the UK and taught for 4 years in Hong Kong as well at an international school there. But I actually found that I was coaching kids to pass tests, and that wasn't education. So I started to look elsewhere to see where else I could be of value to the world. And I took a master's in human resource development. Thought I like people. I know how to motivate people. You know what it's like if you can motivate a class of students that don't want to be there late on a Friday when they want to be somewhere else. Then you've got a motivation gene. And I fell into business development, networking, referrals. I took a sales job with an insurance company. And I like the networking side of it and mixing and talking to people. I am a part qualified accountant. When I left high school, I did take a degree in accounting and I passed the first year. So I have a diploma in accounting, but I found it wasn't for me. But you know what? When I started my own training company, this is early 2000s, I fell into professional services because you know accountants very well. Super smart people, technically brilliant, but often a little bit shy, socially awkward, and I'm dealing with bankers, accountants, lawyers, architects, surveyors, engineers, these kind of people that are so good at what they do, but they need an element of influence, persuasion, leadership. They've got to talk to people. Got to have conversations. Perhaps they've got to bring in new business. So I started a business development academy and I wrote a book called How to Build Your Reputation, which is how do you get someone to choose you above and beyond anyone else for that job, for that contract, for that project, for that piece of work, and became fascinated why some people stand out more than others, how they're more influential than others, how they have a better reputation than others. And that brings us to now where I host 3 accounting podcasts, one on talent and another on influence. And I run a community called AIR, which is the Accounting Influencers Roundtable. And as a side hustle, I work with a couple of CPA firms in North America where I interview their people to talk about why their firm is a great place to work, because they want to attract the top talent. They want to appeal to the students and the incoming and the grads and even those lateral hires and say, hey, in the talent shortage that we've got and the fight for good people, we want to attract the best. So we want our brand, our firm to stand out. So that brings us to now. And I've had you on my show, which has been a real pleasure.
I have, and I enjoy talking with you. I think so many of the points that you make are spot on, which is why I'm glad we're connected. And now have you here on my show. I want to go back really quickly because you talked about this Accounting Influencers Roundtable. And so are these a bunch of people that are like on social media and they speak out a lot? That's often, I think, the perception of influencers today. So tell us a little more about the roundtable and what that is.
Well, when you hear the phrase accounting influencers, there's two ways to interpret that. One is that you could think that, well, these are accounting types that are influential, but that's actually not what our group is. There are influential accounting types and good CPAs that blaze a trail, and they're very influential in what they do. But this is a group for people that are influencers of accountants. So if you think of the ecosystem and all the people that serve accountants, sell to accountants, sell through accountants. So we've got some vendors in there, tech providers, software solutions in there. They're selling to accountants. They're trying to serve the accounting profession. We've got coaches, consultants, trainers, you with your agents of transformation and the great things that you're doing in the Center for Change. You serve the accounting world. So you're helping firms, you're helping individuals. So there's a whole events industry that serves accountants. There's a whole regulation. There's loads of professional bodies, societies, institutes, networks, alliances that serve accountants. There's a whole load of fintech providers, compliance providers, media outlets that serve accountants. So there's a whole ecosystem there. We bring them together to say, how can we serve accountants better? How can we do a better job for them? How can we support them in what they do? Because the accountants then stand in the gap, don't they, as the guardians of business, the trusted advisors. They change the world. So we bring people together to serve accountants better. That's what the roundtable is all about.
With you saying that, I'm getting goosebumps because it's actually, it really speaks to my heart and the reason why I became an accountant. I mean, yeah, that's why we're here. We're here to help improve the world. And most
Yeah.
people think that we just do audit, tax, or financials. And it's not just accountants, as you said. I love that you're being a lot more inclusive of the diversity of our profession. And
Mhm.
but I say diversity, people immediately go racial, and it's like, no, the diversity of disciplines, the diversity of thinking that our profession really embraces everybody and works with everybody. Which you also said earlier, you were working with all types of different professional services as you help them learn to sell better, learn to actually influence through their reputation and help people. I'm curious, what is it that drew you to the profession, and why have you uh, stayed involved with the accounting profession?
Well, there's actually a pivot in the story. So when I came out of teaching, I fell into professional services and was teaching them how to sell themselves, in effect, personal marketing, we would call it. But then in 2016, I had a brain hemorrhage, a stroke that was
Oh,
very sudden, very unexpected. And I had to make some decisions in my life. I've lost some vision now and I have epilepsy, so I'm not allowed to drive. I take medication for that, but it's managed. But I had to say no to a lot of things and recalibrate my life. And at that time, working with a number of different sectors, I had one accounting firm here in the UK that were very loyal to me throughout my rehab, a big firm. And I decided I was going to say no to everything but accountants. So I
mm,
started my podcast in 2017. I was just starting to get better. And I wanted to interview all of the influencers that were moving and shaking and having something to say about the accounting world. And I got to you fairly early. You weren't one of my first ones, but you popped up on my radar because I started to see people like Donny Shimamoto and the Center for Accounting Transformation that were really making waves and were a real force for good. And I wanted to interview these people as a way of building my reputation and being more well known in commentating on what people are doing. And as you hint, there are so many aspects, dimensions to the accounting profession, and so many people doing so many different things that are not actually accountants. So I've been with accounting ever since. I run solely podcasts for them and influencer groups for them and speak into their world and really feel myself like something of a brand ambassador for accounting as a career. And to your point of people think it's accounting, tax, assurance, and the drudge stuff. You and I both know that accounting as a brand doesn't tell a good enough story about how interesting and engaging the work is. And it's great some of the stuff you're doing in painting a better and more truthful picture of what a career in public accounting or even accounting in industry might look like.
completely agree with you. And I actually had to laugh when you shared that that you said you were a math teacher because everyone goes, well, accounting's a lot of math. So naturally he's a math teacher. He's going to be good in accounting. And you've not talked to anything about math in all of the things that you're talking about. It's all,
No.
like you said, people and marketing and business development and reputation, which is the other thing I think is so important in our profession. We are the most trusted profession in the world, even more than doctors, even more than any of the other professionals, because of our integrity. And that's what we always hold true, is that we will always put the client ahead of ourselves.
But there is a sad part of that, Donny, which won't have gone unnoticed by your audience here, is that sometimes accounting shoots itself in the foot. We hear of audit scandals, and we hear of the big firms getting it wrong, and the professional bodies not selling accounting as they should do, and the 150 hours and all these kind of things where you think, really, you're trying to bring super smart people into this profession and show them, shine a light on this, and we're not doing the best job of it. And that's global. So there's work to be done. People like you and I and many other good people are saying, look, this is a good place for you to be. But then if we don't tell the right stories and we don't paint a true picture and we don't show all the different opportunities in accounting, then how are the young people of today going to make an informed choice? It's hard.
Completely, completely.
And we might get onto compound, I'm not sure, but a starting graduate in law will earn 20-30% more than a starting accountant. And that's global. Then there's diversity. You speak a lot about diversity. Accounting has a reputation of old, stale, white, male, pale, anything you want to talk about. But you and I both know that there's some fascinating, really diverse people, however you want to define diversity, that are breaking new ground and pioneering new ways of going about accounting and thinking about it. So exciting times. But yeah, ultimately, accountants are the guardians of business. They kept the lights on and the doors open throughout the pandemic. And we don't give them enough credit for the way they stand in that gap and are real servants. And not just professionals, but they've been shoulders to cry on, and psychotherapists and psychiatrists and counselors and friends to businesses, and shoulders to cry on in tough times, and really advocates of family firms where they get involved. They come to funerals, they know your pets' names and your kids' names and all of that stuff. They're good people.
I am honored that you would say that about our profession. And I agree, it's true. It's one of the things that the more I got involved, not locally at my state level, nationally and internationally, I found that to be true. Everyone is just so caring.
We're situational extroverts, Donny. So you recharge your batteries probably by being on your own, being in your own company, liking some peace and quiet, but you can turn it on. You can light up a stage. You can boss an interview or a podcast like this. But most accountants are like that. They are introverts by nature. They're very risk averse. They don't like putting themselves out there. And that's a strength. It can also be a weakness, because accountants have to talk to people. They have to solve problems. They have to mitigate risk. They have to ask tough questions. They have to be very ethical. And that means having crucial, critical, tough conversations.
Very much.
And so it's a multifaceted career, even more so now than it was 10, 20 years ago. I wanted to ask you, if I could ask you a question on your own show. When you were like 15, 16, did you always want to be in this game? What turned your eye to a career in accounting?
It's funny that you chose 15. So 15 was when I took my first accounting class, and I
Wow.
absolutely loved it. Loved it. It came super natural to me. In fact, the teacher was actually fresh out of college. So this was her first job out of college. She was teaching accounting, and she would struggle with some of the problems. And in class, she would go, Donny, what answer did you
Donny.
get? And I would tell her, and she'd go, oh yeah, that sounds right.
So
And
you
we
were
would
born
laugh.
to be in this job, really, but you needed somebody, you needed a class, you needed a teacher, you needed somebody to say, hey, this is a possibility here. Otherwise, you might have ended up being a rocket scientist or a lawyer or something else.
Well, despite me taking accounting in high school, I actually still almost until graduation, actually wanted to be a chemical engineer, because
Really?
I
Wow.
wanted to. Actually, I forget what it was called, but it was chemical engineer originally, and then it was it's the one that makes medical devices because it still comes back to I wanted to be able to help people. I wanted to
Got
do
it.
things that could help people. But
Yeah,
when I took the AP chemistry course, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to have to do this
that's
anymore.
hard.
And so my other real focus during high school was business. And so I was like, I'm going full business. And I did accounting and MIS and for college.
And when
Um,
you were coming up through the ranks, Donny, did you see people like you? And the reason I asked that is I interviewed Herschel Frierson a while back. He's a partner at Crow,
mhm,
and he's head of the National Association of Black Accountants. And he
mhm.
said when I was coming up through the ranks, I couldn't see anybody like me. It was really hard. I was breaking new ground. I was pushing against walls, and you tick a few diversity boxes, if I can be that blunt. So we don't often see people like us, which is why it's great that you're shining a light on diversity and saying, "Hey, it takes all sorts. There is no
Well,
avatar for an accountant."
that, that is true. That is very true. For myself, I'm born and raised and grew up in Hawaii.
Yeah,
So in Hawaii, Asian is the dominant.
true.
There isn't
Yeah, I
a single
suppose.
Asian that's dominant, but Asian in general is the dominant.
Yeah.
So there was a lot that looked like me.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I got involved at the national level where I realized, okay, now all of a sudden, and I had to ask myself, am I the token Asian or even
Was.
often the
Yeah.
token minority? Because I had reached even being the chair of an AICPA committee very early in my career
Wow.
compared to, and I kept being like the only minority in the room. In
Yeah.
fact, I remember one um, senior chairs meeting at the AICPA. This is probably in around 2011-ish, maybe. So it's not that long ago.
Hmm.
Um, where it was myself. I was the only non-white male, and there was one white older female, and the two of us were the only ones that were not older white males in the room. And these were all the chairs of all the senior committees at the AICPA. And I was like, oh my goodness.
And what was that telling you? What message was that giving to you?
For me, it told me that I needed to make sure that I was more visible so that people did
Mm,
look and say, hey, there are some others out there. This is not just a white male profession.
yeah.
And that really started me making sure that I was more visible, that I started speaking at more classes, that I, started to role model and say, hey, there's opportunities for all of us in this profession.
And what you were doing there, maybe even unintentionally, is building up influence and career capital so that you could have a voice because you want to affect change. To do that, you need some cachet, you need some kudos, you need some agency. And to do that, you've got to get out of your comfort zone. You've got to speak, you've got to write, you've got to create thought leadership, you've got to speak up, you've got to put your nose above the parapet, you've got to be willing to be representative and vocal. Yes, you've got to be really good at what you do because all influence is really built on that foundation in accounting of technical expertise. But you had a crusade, you had a cause, you wanted to be representative, you wanted to be an advocate. And to do that, you've got to have a voice. And influence is the currency of that, which makes people listen and say, hey, this guy's got something to say, something that I want to hear. I like what he's doing. I could follow him. I could listen to him. I could take action on what he's doing. And you might even change the course of somebody's life, which is what you're all about.
But I do hope so. I do hope so. But this podcast should really be about you. So I got to flip this back to you, and
I think
you're
it's common
talking about.
ground, Donny, isn't it? It's common ground for you and I. We're both making a difference in our own way, and speak. Even the most introverted person will influence thousands of people in their lifetime.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and so how do you feel that you maybe have saved the day for your clients or anyone that you've worked with? Can you tell us an example of that, especially as part of your career within accounting?
I have thought about superhero status because we talk about this a little bit, don't we? And how are you changing the world? How is the world a better place for you having been in it? And it takes us into the realm of legacy. I'm a bit older than you and a lot older than your audience here. But you start to say, have I lived a life that mattered? Have I lived a life that counted? And if I look at my superhero talent, it would probably be bringing people together and giving people a
Mm,
voice. when I work with my CPA firms and interviewing their people just on remotely, like you and I are right now, I ask them questions like, why did you come into accounting? Why did you come into this firm? What was it attracted you? What were they saying on campus or wherever they met with you amidst all the other options that you had? What were they saying to bring you to their firm? How are they talking about what a life is like at their firm and the work-life balance and the interesting opportunities? And how are they selling it to you? And what I love doing, and maybe my superpower, is giving those people that are in accounting a voice to say, this is good. It's great working here. It's great working in this industry. I enjoy my work. Yes, it's hard at times. Let's not deny it. We're professionals. We're paid well. We study hard. We're very smart, but we're making a difference. And I love getting those stories out there of people like you and others that are walking the walk. I'm not walking the walk, but I will give those people a voice and getting them to tell their stories. And ultimately, in being a brand ambassador for accounting as a career choice and as a profession, because as a whole, we've hinted already, it doesn't tell a good story, a good enough story. And that's why people are leaching out of public accounting and going into finance or going into tech or going into industry or not even coming into public accounting. Nothing's changed. It's still a great job. We just don't sell it enough. So there are other options for young people these days. And you and I both want to turn that corner. So you're doing it in your way. I'm doing it in mine, in amplifying those stories and those advocates and those champions for the profession and bringing the influencers together to talk about how they're helping accountants and in turn how those accountants are making a difference to their clients. Because accountants probably hold the world together.
And what do you think your superpower really is through all that?
Facilitating, bringing together. We have these speed networking events where we invite people to come join a conversation. What are accountants doing? What are they thinking? What are they working on? What's got their attention? What are their pain points? What's keeping them up at night? What are they excited about right now? What's the next big thing that's taking up their time? How is artificial intelligence? How is chat GPT? How is private equity? How is a myriad of things affecting their working lives right now? And you're mindful of what's going on with maybe Dell and IBM and the call to bring people back into the office and let's all get back to where we were. Accounting's not unaffected by that. So those conversations are out there. If I come and work for you, what does my work look like? And what does my working environment look like? So my superpower would be giving people a platform for their stories and a fireside chat just by interviewing. I feel like I'm a professional interviewer these days. And I say to people, tell me about you and your world. And I guess that's why I fell into asking you what were you like at 15? What was the pivot on the road, the sign, the person, the conversation that made you say, okay, my life's going to go in this direction? And more people like that, hopefully more people like you will bring people back into accounting and say, almost as the Bible says, I'm a committed Christian. There's a phrase that says, God will tell you, this is the way, walk in it. Don't turn to the right or to the left, but this is the way, walk in it. And so many great people out there that you show appeals to. And perhaps need that little push, that little bit of confidence, that success story to say, hey, I can do that, or that's like me, or I can relate to that, or I want to walk in that path. So yeah, maybe my superhero is amplifying, giving people a voice to those stories that accounting is great.
I like that. That is an important superpower. And a lot of people don't realize that is, and that's part of that personal branding, and it's part of the visibility. Flipping that around, what's your kryptonite? Like, what's your critical vulnerability?
That I'm the bottleneck in the business. If you consider, and you're more better suited to speaking to this than me, but if we say the phrase accountant and we ask people what is an accountant, we'll get a million different answers. And you know that there are a million different jobs and roles and tasks and things that an accountant could do, things that they are responsible for and ways that they could do it. And I'm the bottleneck in the business. It's my kryptonite that I can't interview enough people to tell enough stories of the diversity and the richness and the variety of a life in accounting. and helping people get over that hurdle that if you come into a career in accounting, you're going to be chained to a desk in a dark room for 10 to 15 years, and you might make partner if you're lucky. That's the traditional reputation of accounting, isn't it? It's boring, it's dull, it's mundane, it's drudgery. It's not interesting. You don't really make a difference. You're just churning out the numbers. But you and I both know how accounting is changing. And sure, the compliance, the mandated stuff, it's becoming less valued and maybe less interesting and maybe more automated. But there's a whole world out there of advice and consulting and consoling and getting alongside and coaching and everything else that accounting professionals can do if they develop those skills, the commercial acumen, the entrepreneurial flair, the presentation skills, the persuasive skills, the influence. They could make such a difference. So yeah, not being able to interview enough people to get enough good stories out there, that might be a weakness of mine. And I guess like many people, it's a factor of time, Donny, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's why I ended up growing an entire staff out. My team for
Yeah.
the longest time was like 9 people, 9 or 10 people, and we kind of floated around that number. And within the last 2 years, we've jumped up to 33. So
Mm.
we've gone through an explosive growth just because we are, like you said, just trying to reach more people and help them understand, like, hey, these are really great things that we do.
But you know what people buy into, Donny? They buy into you for sure because you are the crusader. You're the pioneer. You are weaving a narrative, a story, a vision that people can get on board with, that makes them excited, that makes them think, I want to be a part of this. I like what Donny Shimamoto is doing. I love his work ethic. I love his crusade. His call to arms. This is something I want to be a part of. And so you're doing that on your levels, in your communities, and within your spheres of influence. And we've all got a responsibility to do that in this world, to shine a light. I've said it before, but yeah, you're doing it particularly well because you're somebody that people follow a lot. They love your messages, they love your output, they love your content, they love your approach. And when people follow you like that, they will want to be part of your team. They want to be on your team bus. They want to do what you do. They want to be you. They want to affect the world like you do. And that's a great legacy that you're leaving.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot to me. And I do see that in my team. They all are so they all keep asking me, what can I do to help? What can I do to
Yeah,
help?
they
And
get
I
it,
know
don't
that
they?
sometimes when things don't go right, they're really upset with themselves, not because they did something wrong, but because they feel like they let me down. And
Do you find too,
that's
Donny,
really
that they're evangelists? That they sometimes get it even more than you do.
yeah, yeah. And that I think is also the wonderful thing. They're all and not everyone is in accounting as you. We use all these different disciplines, but the fact that they want to take and help promote the profession as well.
Well,
Um,
they need two things to do that. They need education and they need enthusiasm. So you and I both know people that are ignorance on fire. So they don't know what they're talking about, but they're really passionate about it. So they've got enthusiasm, but they're not educated. They don't know quite the messaging. They don't know how to go about things. So we need that element of enthusiasm and fire in your belly. Absolutely, we get that. And you've got that. When you're in your flow, your zone, you're as passionate as anybody, but equally, you're very authoritative, you're declarative, you've got huge credibility, and you've earned the right, you've studied hard, you've learned your craft, and you add the passion to the education. And when you can create a team around you, which you're doing, it's not ignorance on fire, it's education on fire. And that creates true evangelism. That moves the
ooh,
dial.
I got to remember that one. Education on fire. You have actually given us a really great lesson on influence and reputation, I think. So I hope anyone listening if they didn't pick that up as we were talking through it, goes back to the beginning and really listens to the words that you're saying and how you're using them. So I think that really is your superpower. And you actually described it as part of what you do. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to contact you?
I'm most active on LinkedIn, so Rob Brown on LinkedIn, and I would give this message of encouragement to your audience as well, Donny. We're talking quite a lot about influence. There are many different ways to build influence. 10, in fact. I've counted 10, and blends of those. For instance, we know people that have built big communities. We know people that have built thought leadership and content. We know people that have built methodologies. We know people that have simply been brilliant at their job. So you don't have to follow somebody that you like and do it their way, because you're your own personality. Your weapons are not my weapons. Your style is not my style, Donny, and God made us all different. So there are many different ways to achieve significance, to achieve influence, to have a voice. But yeah, LinkedIn is a great place to find me. And people like you and I, we're doing our bit, but there's a new generation coming through, Donny, that are going to have to pick up the flag soon and start flying it after we're done.
Completely. Well, I hope for all of you listening that we have influenced you to take a little broader look at the profession, and perhaps you will be one of these that helps pick up the flag in the future. So thank you very much, Rob, and thank the rest of you out there for listening to us, and we'll catch you again on the next episode.
The Center for Accounting Transformation provides business professionals with a network for utilizing innovations that are ready for adoption, the training and resources necessary to apply those innovations, and an opportunity to engage the talent and community needed to further the pursuit of innovative accounting practices that drive responsible and mindful business performance. Find out more at our website, www.improvetheworld.net. And if you're interested in sharing your own transformation stories, please contact us there.